I'm here.
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 Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Longabaugh.
Here.
And Councilmember Villanueva will not be here this evening. Thank you.
Right. And what I'm going to do is ask you to read the one item that we have for workshop. We do have our presenter is running a little late, so he's got some pinch hitters that are coming in until he gets here.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 1, please.
Presentation by Maricopa County Board of Supervisor Chairman Max Wilson regarding air quality.
Okay, may we have a presenter step forward?
I didn't know he was going to be
And he
called.
runs out the
Well,
door.
while we're waiting for the
away
county,
fast.
for the folks that are at home, we have the Maricopa County's new air quality monitoring van out in the parking lot, and it was available for a couple hours for folks to tour, and it's really a state-of-the-art vehicle, and we believe that it's going to help us, first of all, to identify those places where we need to have remediation for air quality. We need to take some action, and also to help us attain the PM10 standards that's mandated for our area. So without further ado, may we have the presenter?
Yes, please. Good morning, Mayor, members of the council. Actually, I guess good afternoon. I just need more time in the day today, so I'll start over. I think a couple of introductory, just general comments, if I can. I've been here with the county since about the late October, and entering into the county air program, we've had to deal with a number of major issues. First, which was about a $5.5 million deficit in our budget for this year. It was a fairly significant hit since our budget's about $20 million and we had 6 months to make it up. In addition, we have some permit backlogs, enforcement backlogs, and some inspection backlogs we've been working on. So we've had our hands full for the last 5 or 6 months wrestling with a number of issues. Okay, what did I do? Okay.
And once you start, sir, could you give us your name one more time for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Lawrence Odle. I'm the director for the county air quality department. By way of background, I can tell you my undergraduate degree was in environmental biology and my graduate is in law. Been involved in air quality regulation in one frame or another for, I don't want to admit it, for about 30 years. So I've had a chance to work at the state, the federal, the local, and also the nonprofit and private industry levels in the field of air quality. I think just to set the stage here, the Arizona is obviously the 24th highest carbon dioxide polluting state in the U.S. And each Arizona resident produces about 17 tons of carbon dioxide annually. 68 million tons of CO2 are in Maricopa County alone. But we have about 100,000 tons of PM10 produced each year. That's a fairly significant challenge in a sense. The picture that you see right there was actually taken in January of this year. %, are at risk of health problems attributed to air pollution. It amplifies, the ozone amplifies the risks of fatal respiratory illnesses. We had about 250,000 that die each year. Annually, EPA spends a tremendous amount of funds, almost $1 billion in 2008 alone. But the estimated health care costs exceed the amount that we spend. In Maricopa County, we're allowed to exceed the health-based ambient air quality standards 3 times before we're triggered into a non-attainment status. And this is not news to those of you here, I'm sure. In 2008, we exceeded it 12 times. So far this year, in 2009, we've exceeded it 3 times. We've had, as you can see, 53 exceedance days in 3.5 years. If you look at the emission inventory of where we come from, that is, where does this particulate come from, what you're going to find is a good chunk of it comes from construction-related activities and transportation-related activities. This is the simply a circle graph that breaks out what the PM10 is, using about 100,000 tons a year. We have found ourselves in a non-attainment status that is unique to the federal program because we have not been able to demonstrate attainment through a standard process. The Fed's usual program is that you do an attainment plan that brings you into attainment over a period of time. That's done with a combination of modeling exercises and inventory activities. You can demonstrate attainment, and as you progress towards adopting those control strategies in the plan, and you show attainment, then you're relieved of certain restrictions. When you cannot do that, you're pushed into what's called a severe non-attainment status, which Maricopa County is in. That means that we reduce the particulates or the air pollution 5% a year until we attain the standards. Essentially what that means is you align up the control strategies and you slowly make them more stringent each time. At the risk of, when you have the risk of not performing that 5% plan, you jeopardize over $7 billion in transportation funds to Arizona State itself. So the impact of the 5% plan essentially is a regulatory process that slowly tightens down, if you would, the regulations until you end up with an attainment status. We are involved in a process that looks to decrease the number of days we exceed that standard. We want to engage everyone in that process, and we also want to meet the requirements that are laid out in SB 1552, as well as reducing the particulates. As part of our internal process, we have assigned a staff person, Frank Schinzel, who is our primary contact with the cities, and we have just recently held a workshop involving all of the cities that we were able to attend to discuss how we might comply with SB 1552. We wanted to serve as a catalyst in that process. So the type of things that the 5% plan is intended to do is to conduct a countywide outreach public education program. These are commitments we made to EPA. To increase the training in both compliance and public awareness, to perform what we call subcontractor registration programs to help minimize and reduce dust. We have several rules that we're revising which related to fugitive dust emissions. Also revising certain ordinances, leaf blowers, vehicle use, vacant lots, residential wood place. In addition, we made a commitment to create an advisory committee internally, and we'll certainly invite the cities to participate in that program. We made a commitment to initiate a mobile monitoring program as part of our activities. We've recently completed the purchase. We're in the process of going through quality assurance activities with this, and it was here earlier today for display. We're expanding our public outreach activities in a very dramatic way, including more outdoor HPA alert boards, radio brochures, local events, community presentations, and we've designated no burn days on what we call HBA and Health Watch days. That's a new policy we just initiated in the last few months. In addition, as part of this, we would be holding public outreach opportunities to allow the public to comment. I realize today, for example, that making this presentation to you, it's unlikely the public would have an opportunity to comment on the issues or issues that might not be related to this presentation. So we will be holding public opportunities throughout various areas to encourage the dialogue and the discussion with the public on those issues, to expand our public education activities. We do have certain outreach resources. We have a new website. We're doing e-blast communications, and we have several other activities we're looking at. Essentially, we're trying to get everyone involved in this outreach program. We realize that traditionally, air pollution is associated with emissions coming out of a stack or vehicles, but it's much more than that. It is the byproduct of our attempt as a man to attain a higher standard of living. And as long as we continue to work in that direction, as long as we continue to seek ways to improve our standard of living, we're going to have this product called air pollution. So it's going to take everything. And you can see the header on the slides we have a little faded out, but we have a series of things from using cleaner fuel to efficient light bulb activities, to biking, multimodal activities, just a variety of things. We are looking for the city councils to help us in this process, as well as the public, and become what we call clean air ambassadors to help clean the air and to champion the kinds of activities that will move that goal forward, including providing the leadership and the local activities to do so. We encourage the city to add the Clean Air Make More link that we have on the local website, to designate a Clean Air Make More ambassador with the city, and involve us in our activities in the newsletters and ongoing mailings to residents. And essentially, we sort of challenge each of you as a city council to become a member, make the clean air commitment, which we have. We have quite a number of people that have made that over the year, including all of the members of the boards of supervisors and all of the management staff at the Air District. There are 5 steps. Essentially, we're driving less, we're avoiding the long drive-through lines instead of parking the car and going inside. We refuel the vehicle after dark, use electrically charged equipment, using low VOC water-based paints. Each one of these individually will appear very nominal, but frankly, when you add them all together, it's a very major step in the activity. So the potential is there to make a difference. And we can do this. We encourage all of you to be part of that process and look forward to your support. I'm pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. And one of the things I'd like to do is acknowledge the folks here from the Joint Environmental Task Force. I've previously attended some of their meetings, and they're an advocacy group from the Sun Cities, Surprise, Youngtown, and just the entire region. And I think that if they were given the opportunity to speak, they would want to bring up the concern over open pit mining that we have along the Agua Fria. Can you address that issue for us?
I can tell you that that is one of a number of the issues that we're looking at. My office has identified 146 specific goals to be completed between now and December 31st of this year, in addition to the establishing of 13 new internal task forces. One of those task forces looks specifically at this issue. There are opportunities for us, perhaps not to fix the concerns immediately, but on a long-term strategic basis, make significant steps towards resolving some of those issues. On one side, we have an industry that has been truncated, if you would, for production activities simply because of the economic times. That's just a sense of reality. A lot of the business activities have kind of, let's say, reduced significantly. On the other side, we have the stimulus package coming forward. So we anticipate the sources in that area will certainly, we hope that the business will improve, and as a result, we expect increased activity in that area. So we are looking at that issue as an opportunity with which to evaluate the potential impacts of a number of sources in the river bottom area. One of the concerns, I think, one of the abilities to do that will be the use of what we call cumulative modeling activities. And we're in the process internally of developing a policy to address that. What I mean by that is you can have one source go in and you can model to determine if the emissions downwind violate the health-based standard. Then you can have another one come in, and another one, and another one. and they can relocate and move around. But the sense of what the cumulative effect is from all of those is what we're after to look at. So we'll be moving forward in that area. We have a hearing next week, a public hearing, which deals with a new permit for a new, very small batch plant, and we will be holding after that the public forum with which to provide the public in general the opportunity to talk about the issues. And I'm going to guess that this cumulative modeling and the sand plants, et cetera, in the river bottom will be one of those topics.
Very, very good. You know, statistically, this area has the highest incidence of valley fever. And so we're very motivated and very concerned about this issue. And quite frankly, it can't get taken care of fast enough. We want to get it taken care of as soon as possible. And, you know, we can't do anything about the dust, the wind that blows dust across the deserts, but we should have a voice on these open pit mines and control them in such a way that they're not contributing to valley fever and ill health of our residents and those surrounding the mines. So it's a big concern.
Mayor, I certainly agree with you. And it's interesting to me that when we look at the spaces where we actually exceed the health-based particulate standard, we've never documented a violation of that health-based standard that has not been in an area which was disturbed by man. That is an area which is at some point we went into as man to disturb and then either built on or paved over in some sense. So we're fairly comfortable, if you would, saying that we have areas that we can address. Mother Nature certainly plays a big part of it on some of these exceptional exceedances, such as the last few days we've had some big winds. But realistically speaking, there is a lot more that we can do in these areas, and we're very much focused on doing that.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. As everybody knows, I was pretty critical because of the lack of mining in the last PM10 and agricultural. What's being done with that?
The lack of money?
Because I said
I've ordered a printing machine. I'll just wait for it to come. A couple of things. First, we are establishing, one of the committees we've established and one of the policies is to develop what we call a SEP, or a supplemental enforcement program, which funds or puts funds in a trust, if you would, or an account that allows us to begin to pave areas in and around the monitoring sites. So we're recognizing that some of the cities are going to be short on funds, and we've already established the account. It's a matter now of filling it and going through the process, where we'll be pulling off 1% of the enforcement penalties that we pick up, and they'll be available to champion, if you would, particular projects around the area. Let's see, the other issue you mentioned.
Agricultural?
The agricultural issue is a bit of a challenge. We have established an internal task force to deal with that. The ag operations are essentially regulated by the state, by ADEQ. We cannot regulate ag operations. But what we can do is we can document occasions, and we did this, I believe, in mid-November, where the violation of the health-based standard actually was due to the tilling, agricultural tilling activities. Around 7, 8 o'clock at night, we ran numbers of over 2,000 micrograms per cubic meter. And you're looking at something much less, like 150 as a standard for that. So we're working with ADEQ on those types of issues very closely. We are logging complaints. We are following up on those issues. And where the ag operations transition into commercial industrial activities, we will regulate that activity.
Thank you.
Mr. Alston.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I've got a couple of questions for you. When was the last time that the county issued any citations for the mining operations?
Well,
or not complying with
as far as I know, we don't actually issue citations per se. Those are notices to appear in court. In terms of notices of violation, we have people in the field every day. So,
when was the last time a citation was issued?
I couldn't tell you exactly, but I'm going to guess that it's happened certainly within the last month. I would be surprised if it didn't.
And those,
But I want to caveat that by saying I don't follow day-to-day violation notices.
are those public records violation notices? I would imagine they are.
They are. There are occasions where, because of the enforcement activity, until it's actually completed, it would remain internally.
Okay, okay. I would love to see the statistics regarding violations and what happens to them afterwards. The other thing is that I know that the mining industry wants to be very good neighbors. Okay, and I know that this machine and this truck does marvelous things. However, it's only one little truck in a big, big area. Do you ever foresee bringing back the monitors, stationary monitors, that we had in place over at Coyote Lakes, I believe? And that's gone now.
At some point in the future, I think those can be discussed. We have 24 air monitoring sites throughout the county right now. We just went through a reduction in force of 52 positions out of our 258. Our budget is just as challenging as other cities, so we don't have the money to put up and man and operate a large number of air monitoring stations. We have relocated that station to a school area fairly close by, and we will be using the mobile monitoring van that you saw out here up and down the area. The activity to focus resources in and around the mining industry is one of many strategies that we're involved with. I wouldn't want to second guess the future at this point because I don't know how long, just as you don't, what the financial challenges will be in the next few years. But we're very much focused on dealing with that area. I will tell you that one of the things that we have been working on recently is reducing what we call our enforcement backlog. As of October 31st, we had over 1,500 violation notices that, if you would, that were or violations that were backlogged. And that means that if you got stopped today for speeding, it could be a year and a half or later before you actually got the notice in the mail to pay. So you can imagine that we find ourselves in a situation where some notices have been issued. The public is interested in knowing how they're resolved. The stakeholders on the other side are saying, wait a minute, I just got nailed a year and a half, I got today for something that happened a year and a half or 2 years ago. We had some permits that were as old as 4 years backlogged, and as applications that hadn't been processed. We have made major, significant advances in reducing those backlogs. Our enforcement backlog has been reduced over 33% in the last 4 months. Same as our permit backlog and our inspection program. Alone, we produced over 5,000 inspections in the last 6 weeks. So we're making a lot of headway. I don't want to pretend to suggest to know when we'll actually be caught up at a point where we're being able to process the work we're generating within a reasonable time, in a sense. But we're very much focused on the issue.
Thank you. The other item that I had, ATVs.
My son loves them.
I understand that. I do too. But there's a big crackdown on the usage of ATVs. Are you monitoring that, or are you leaving that up to local law enforcement as well as the sheriff's office?
We realize that that's not only a sensitive issue, but it's simply a tough issue to deal with. We are partnering with all the interested cities and looking to expand some of the county programs as well as some of the city programs to deal with enforcement of ATV use. We have appointed an internal committee, specifically a task force, again, to deal with that issue because we recognized it's a spirited one and it's a sensitive one. In addition, Frank has been very much involved in that to help educate the public and to bring about consistency within the cities and the county. It's a tough issue because it crosses not only the city boundaries and issues, but it also blends itself into game and fish. My California comes back to me, but the game and fish issues that are there, BLM issues, trust land issues. So it sounds initially like a simple issue, but when you start writing up policies and regulations for it, you find that you're crossing over into some traditional uses that make it tough. But again, it's one of those task forces that we focused on, and we're hoping to have further guidance and additional funds through our enforcement SEP program to help out the cities and the county in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hall.
Yes. Yes, thank you, sir, for your presentation. I had a couple questions on piggybacking on Councilman Alton's question about violations. What does the violation mean?
The violations,
I'm a mining company and I get a violation. Okay, is there a dollar fine attached to it?
yes, there is.
What is that?
Okay. It will vary based on a number of criteria. And I will add a new criteria to the settlement part of the process. But it depends upon the seriousness of the violation. It depends on the pollutant itself, the length of time that the violation has occurred. Is it procedural? Is it mission-related? One of the policies, frankly, that we just instituted recently is to put the stakeholders on notice that if an emissions violation occurs on a day that we've exceeded the health-based standard, we will seek maximum penalties under the law for that, and we won't reduce the penalty. The failure to settle that means it ends up in court, but the funds that would be saved from a stakeholder violating on that day would be their attorney fees, essentially. Under the current process, we have a large number of factors that go into a program that is very similar to what EPA uses to settle, including the ability to pay, size of the corporation, just a large number of different factors that come out. So the fine could be as low as $100 or $180 to as much as $10,000 per count. It just depends on the violation.
And then what if there's repeated violations? Is the permit at risk? Can it be?
You know,
No way?
that's an issue that we're looking at right now. Realize that I'm from another state, so I could answer that question to the detail from another state's perspective. Arizona has a different set of statutes and different authorities.
Right.
And as a result of that, what I'm finding is that it depends, it's a case-by-case basis, essentially. What we are doing in the enforcement settlement process that we were not doing is we've initiated what we call conduct change conditions. So it's not merely enough that a stakeholder pay a fine or a penalty. We are putting in the settlement process conditions that we believe will bring about and sustain compliance over a period of time. We have the ability, depending upon the size of the facility, to engage EPA in the enforcement program, too.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a certain amount of leverage as we move through the process.
Okay. You'll have to pardon my ignorance in terms of how all these bureaucratic organizations dovetail. Okay, I'm not quite sure, but I thought that we had highway funds at risk if our air quality doesn't get better.
About $7.4 billion worth, something
Okay.
like that.
And so, to me, that seems that would be your biggest job is to make sure that's not lost. Am I correct?
I'm going to say that's the second biggest job. I think the first is protecting the public's health.
Well, okay, all right. That's a good point. Did you get a chance to read the CDC report? Have you seen it? The Center of Disease Control out of Atlanta that came out here and studied.
We are a member of a committee that the county health officer sits on. You're referring to the valley fever issue.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So you read through that.
Yes, I have.
Did it impact you? I mean, was it?
Very much so.
Okay. All right. The other thing is the monitor that was at Coyote Lakes, and you moved it to Zuni.
That's correct.
Okay. Why did you do that, or what was the?
Well, there's a number of reasons. One, the monitor, while it was meeting all of the QA requirements, it was not representative of the air quality that the public was exposed to because of its specific location. Secondly, we wanted to set a monitor at a school, which is largely one of the major focuses of a lot of the federal studies and research activities that are going on.
Okay.
So in a sense. Third, the activity we did by relocating that is one part of a much larger program to look at the activities in the Agua Fria River area. To have a simple monitor there and be able to tell people what the number is without being able to use the data in terms of any sort of a significant air quality planning activity or an enforcement activity related program doesn't serve our program well. We could keep it there and we could let people think that it served a purpose, but in terms of being able to use it, it would be akin to you buying a tool and thinking this is really neat, and then setting it on your bench and never being able to use it because maybe it had a chain to it, you couldn't take it anywhere.
Yeah.
With the overall program, we've targeted a wide perspective of measures and control strategies, which we continue to refine to be able to deal with these issues on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Well, in all due respect, that's arguable from my standpoint. But my last question, violations. In this day and age, have we thought about handheld computers that transmit the violation and what type of violation it is, and have a computer print out the violation and mail it?
We actually,
Or are you looking at a system like that?
we have that ability now, and we are using it now.
And you're using it now, and you still have that backlog.
Well, we have, the answer is yes. I think the program that the inspectors have computers, laptops, and we're able to do what you said, and in some cases we are. But in terms of a regular process, I think the use of the technology and the addition of new employees and the existing IT program that we have has not been able to maximize its ability. We are focused on doing that. This is
Okay.
a fairly new effort.
Okay. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because that needs, the pain needs to get close to the offense.
I could not agree with you more, and that's why, to be candid, I suspended all vacation and all flex time of our staff for a period of 6 weeks. All 212 staff that were left after reduction in force, everyone was told they wanted to focus on the backlogs that we had, and we've made substantial progress in that direction. So I concur with you. It's not something we're going to get overnight, but our heart's there, and we're working on it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I know that the sand and gravel folks, the mining folks, have a pretty powerful lobbying group. My question is there any legislation, and I know we're waiting for the legislators to legislate, but when they do, are there any bills that are going to be coming up that are going to give you guys more teeth, or that are going to give us a greater ability to enforce our current standards?
I really can't answer that to the point of saying that sometimes these bills start out innocent, but they get changed along the way. So at some point, at any particular point, if I were to say, yes, look at my watch right now, I'm not aware of anything that would inhibit us. I couldn't say that, the next time a committee meets, essentially. We are following the legislative issues, but to be real candid, Mayor, I think there is more internal organization issues that we can address to improve our efficiency and our ability. I think the legislative limits on our actions, to a certain extent, are secondary at this point. That may change in the future, but there's a lot of things that we can do that we're focused on that I think will put us a step forward in the process. When we're closer to the line, if you would, then I think the legislative issues will come into place. One of the unique activities in Arizona is that the state sets the maximum limits of our authority, as opposed to an area like California where the state sets the minimum hurdle that you have. So locally you traditionally have much more of an authority on some of the other states. Here it's a little different. We have to work within that, under that umbrella. But internally there's enough of our activities that we can improve on that I think it'll be a while before we get to the point where the actual statutes inhibit us on this particular issue.
Okay, thank you.
One last question, please. Thank you, Mayor. The mining operations, and there's permits that come forward. You don't hear those permits. They go to another body. another municipality than yourself? Do you have any input on new permits on mining operations?
When we know about those permits, we can certainly comment on them, but the permit process is one that doesn't provide a discretion. It's not a discretionary system. If you meet the obligations and requirements of the law, you get the permit. So we can recommend and provide comments on that, but it's not something that that there's an obligation to do. We do have our own permit activities for that. And again, it's one of those issues where if you meet our rules, then you get the permit.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, then you have no limit to the amount of mining operations that can take place in the Agua Fria.
That would be a land zoning, a land use and a zoning issue.
Okay.
You know, where we limit it, to be candid and at the risk of stepping well beyond what I'm prepared to talk about tonight, I can tell you that the policy of we're developing on cumulative emissions modeling would be something that would have an impact on the number of facilities that could be located in a small area.
Sure.
Clearly, as you can think, you have an increment of air quality. You think of a user capacity, and if you exceed that capacity, you're going to cause violation of the health-based standard. When you do cumulative emissions modeling, then you're basically looking at a larger area, and so you're limiting the emissions, not the number of facilities, because you could put more facilities, have tighter controls on it, and still get the same result.
One last thing. Do you ever foresee having a monitor on the east side of the Agua Fria right by every mining operation that there is?
I think the mobile monitoring unit that we have out here will be monitoring up and down the Agua Fria area in addition to other places. Based on that data and other activities we're doing, we will have additional data. I wouldn't want to second guess whether we'll place a monitor next to each and every facility. I'm not so sure one is necessary. But it doesn't mean that if we were involved in a significant recalcitrant repeated violator that we wouldn't require in-stack monitors, for example. And frankly, have those in-stack monitors tied directly to our office so we can watch and monitor the activities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I know sounds like you've been very, very busy. Have you had an opportunity to tour our area, the area that we're concerned about?
I have. I have been actually flown over it, and I've taken a few ground trips through the area. I admit that from a first perspective, you fly over the area, you see an awful lot of industry very close together in that area, and I can understand why it would be an issue. I realize also that the stakeholders are into it to make business, for a business, and they need to make some money in the process.
Okay, thank you. And I'm assuming you brought material or information for us?
We do. We have some material here, and you have a Clean Air Make More link that we encourage you to go to for additional information. I'm available to any of you if you wish to ask questions specifically or talk further about the issue you've raised tonight. Holly Ward is our Public Information Officer, and I've charged her with the function of stepping out and organizing and making more meetings, if you would, with the public. And Holly, stand up, raise your hand, and so she's available to any of the small groups that would like to call and have an air quality presenter to do it. And I challenge all of you to become a member of our Clean Air Make More commitment process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And if you can just leave that material with the city clerk here, we'd appreciate it. And this meeting's adjourned.